I feel like I kind of have a bit of an obligation to talk about this, especially considering I've covered the entire thing. And so originally there was a video that was made that was criticizing, so the guy that blew himself up in the Cybertruck sent an email to a couple of different people talking about, you know, different like government things that had happened in the past. And then this guy right here, Ryan, had made a video basically saying that, let me see if I can find it if he posts a lot. Yeah, saying that they were lying and he's making up bullshit, etc. Now, at the end of it, I really wasn't sure. I think that a lot of people discounted this guy just simply because of the way that he looked. So I wasn't really, you know, I didn't really think he was telling the truth, but I thought he brought up a few different points. But he came out pretty much guns blazing and saying that, I think the guy's name is Sam Shoemate. Yeah, this is the guy who came up with the information in the email. He basically accused him of faking the email. And he used a couple of points of difference and reference. And anyway, he's come up with a response or a correction video. So we're going to watch it. I've covered this whole topic the entire way through. And we're going to look at it. Look at the image below. Yeah, and this is the thumbnail that he used. And he said, I was wrong to put up the thumbnail pointing to Sean Ryan as well, platforming the idea that President Trump's administration covered up a massive war crime in 2019 without hard evidence other than an email, got the best of my emotions as a soldier, and I won't do that again. So that's basically what he said. We'll go ahead and we'll watch it.
Come to light regarding Matthew Livelsberger and his tragic demise outside of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. I know a lot of you were waiting for this video, but I wanted to make sure I had all of my ducks in a row. I got a crucial piece of the puzzle wrong, and I called someone a liar who apparently didn't lie about an email they received. Now, after the tragedy in Las Vegas, a man named Sam Shoemate went on the Sean Ryan podcast.
And we saw
claimed
this.
that a Special Forces Master Sergeant named Matthew Livelsberger reached out to him via email before his tragic demise. Sean Ryan is one of the most popular podcasters in America, and Mr. Shoemate claimed that he had been in contact with Matthew Livelsberger. But the email he received didn't seem quite right, and I came to the conclusion that Sam Shoemate had made up the email. But I was wrong about that.
Well, you came to the conclusion based off of, like, really weird evidence. Like, his conclusion was that he made up the email because there were red squigglies under certain words, and that made him think that the email was inside of an editor, which made him assume that Sam Shoemate edited and wrote the email himself. Which is like, again, it's interesting, right? It's like it's worth considering, but let's not pretend like this is proof that he's lying, right?
There's more to the story, though.
Well, here we go. That was just
one point. The federal government recently had an interview where they said the email that Sam Shoemate got from Matthew Livelsberger was real.
Yeah, so we have confirmed that the document that he sent to the podcast, we know that he was the one that sent that document. That's correct.
Yeah.
Now on January 4th,
and that was a later email, because before they were talking about the manifesto, and I got into a big argument with my chat. I didn't know whether they were talking about the manifesto because they had referred to that, and then there was another thing that was sent that they said they weren't sure about. Well, it turns out now that they've looked into it more, in fact, both things seem to have been sent from the guy that blew himself up.
I was able to find Matthew Livelsberger's phone number, which is a T-Mobile line out of Colorado Springs. Matthew Livelsberger lived in Colorado Springs, but I couldn't confidently tie the phone number into the email.
Told you? Well, no, I don't really blame myself at all. Correct fucking thank you. Well, it's because it wasn't confirmed. People were acting like it was confirmed. It wasn't confirmed. And the video clip that you had just seen a minute ago is them confirming it after the fact.
So I didn't talk about it.
Yeah, it wasn't confirmed at the time. People were acting like it was guaranteed. It wasn't.
IQ, which is a digital executive protection service.
But the difference is that this guy also thought that it was guaranteed, but that it was a guaranteed lie.
I've worked with Colby and Obscure IQ before,
and it was neither.
Connected through the Chris Merzen Foundation, which is a foundation that helps solve cold case murders through open source intelligence. So here's Colby to explain how he got email confidence.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. So after listening to the Sean Ryan show, where Sean Ryan and Sam Shoemate discussed the Matthew Livelsberger case, I wanted to take a look into the case myself. So what I did was I began an OSINT investigation. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how I went about conducting this investigation and take you through the steps. So the first thing that I started off with was the email itself. So not long after the show ended, Sam and Sean on their own platforms released the email itself along with the full unredacted email address. Now, since I had that email address in hand, I then took it to the next step. So I went to one of my favorite OSINT tools called OSINT Industries. Now, using that tool, I ran the email address that was provided, and I found some really interesting pieces of information.
Well, there you go.
So the first thing that we're able to see here is that this email address was registered for a variety of different services and platforms online. The first thing that I noticed was for Facebook, there was a phone hint. And the only thing that's revealed is the last 2 digits of the phone number, which ends in 84. We're going to want to keep that in mind as we go forward. The next thing that we're also able to see is that this email address was also signed up for a Tesla account, which makes perfect sense as the Tesla Cybertruck was used in the Las Vegas Trump Tower incident. So now that I had the last 2 digits of the phone number, I needed to go see if I could find the rest of the phone number. So the first thing I did was search a number of different people search websites. And I was able to come up upon a people search website that did give...
I trust these guys who just got caught lying? Well, they're not really getting caught lying. That's not what happened. In fact, it's the opposite. This guy basically, he thought it was fake because he didn't trust the guy who made it, and he's correcting himself. And he's providing the evidence that he used to correct himself.
Phone number that ended in 84. Now, one thing we have to note about people search sites, and I'm sure many people know this, is not all the information on those sites are 100% accurate. So I needed to validate that this phone number actually belonged to Livelsberger.
Yeah, sure.
So the next thing I had to do was go back to OSINT Industries. And I was able to...
He was acting like he was an authority on the matter before. Yeah, I think that bothered a lot of people too. And the way that he acted on video. Like, the words themselves... Like, this is a thing for me is that, like, I don't really take the bait for a lot of, like, social interaction. So, like, for example, if a person acts in, like, a really obnoxious or rude way, I usually just like filter that out, and I don't even get put off by that because I'm not thinking about how they're acting because I don't really care about them. I'm just listening to what they're saying. But a lot of people really got put off by the way this guy was talking about it, and I think that this is a pretty good example of why. His credibility is hurt, but his audience won't care. Well, I mean, I think they'll definitely care.
On this phone number and get some additional
He was too biased? Yeah, I think he was biased too.
So the first thing we were able to see is, yes, it's associated with a Facebook account. And the name on that Facebook account, while mostly obscured, the first letter starts with M, and then the first letter for the last name starts with L, which, of course, sounds familiar. But most importantly is the email hint below. The email hint here shows the letter D followed by a number of asterisks, which is used by Facebook to obscure part of the email address for security purposes.
Yeah.
And then followed by the letter B just before the @ symbol. Next, we can see the first letter after that, which is P and ends in .com, which matches up with the email address.
I'm going to skip ahead because it's obviously like he's just going through the different ways that they figured out like how it was actually him. So, like, yeah, basically that's what happened.
Was, in fact, Matthew Livelsberger's email.
Yeah, there you go.
So all that being said, I think we can tie this phone number in with this specific email address. And note that all the data and the PowerPoint for this is at ryanpep.substack.com for free, although some phone numbers are redacted.
Basically, you could have believed them.
So it is...
Nobody deserves to be believed, and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And when a person of previous mental health concerns and mental health issues that were documented says that he was trying to worry about World War III effectively happening, and there's some sort of secret gravity technology that only the US and China has, and then he blows himself up inside a car with a bunch of fireworks, I actually would not consider that a reliable narrator. Now, it could in fact be the person, but I would not immediately believe what that person's saying. I don't know how anybody could come to the conclusion that that is something that you should immediately believe. Like, this is a person of not sound mind. Now, it's not to say that he's lying, or maybe like, and there's degrees of this, right? Is the email fake? Is the guy lying in the email? These are two very separate things.
Likely that the message sent to Sam Shoemate is authentically associated with Matthew Livesberger's phone. I was wrong about the email being manufactured by Sam Shoemate, and I apologize for that. But there are still some weird things regarding that email that don't make sense. So let me go over them, and I'll explain why this actually might be a clue to something that's a lot bigger. The first line is about Chinese submarines off the East Coast. Now, I am not a submarine expert, and I can't say with confidence that a Chinese submarine has never been in the Atlantic.
It was super outlandish.
Getting to the east coast of the United States requires passing through multiple choke points in either direction. The Bering Sea, the Panama Canal, or the Strait of Magellan if you're approaching from the west.
You mean
and
the American
Cape of Good
Canal.
Hope, or the Suez Canal if you're approaching from the east. And that sounds hard, especially when the U.S. Navy really wants to find you. But I tend to stay away from naval topics because outside of carrier and amphibious operations, I just don't know that much. But I think it is a little piece of the puzzle because the Navy, who knows about stuff like this, might call this statement into question. And also, talking about war crimes...
Well, there's never going to be any sort of explanation of whether that happened or not, because this is like confidential, top secret military intelligence. So, like, you're never going to know the truth to this one way or another. Realistically, it's just not going to happen.
2019 doesn't make that much sense either. By 2019, the war in Afghanistan was being transitioned to a mostly Afghan-run show, but the U.S. was still running operations. I think the biggest threat there was ISIS-K, although they were mainly in the east. So if you look at this line, war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimroz province, this kind of leads me to think, what the heck was going on in Nimroz province that required 125 buildings being struck? Now, there is a UN report of strikes on drug facilities in May of 2019 in Farah and Nimroz provinces, which did cause...
Well, it seems like that probably happened.
And this aligns with the email sent by Matthew Livesberger, but maybe claiming that 125 buildings were hit in Nimroz could be a clue, since that is far beyond the UN number. And another funny thing is that President Trump was in office back in 2019, which implies that President Trump's administration was complicit in covering up a massive war crime. That would make the people who were in power at the time and didn't recall such an event to question the email as well. So what if this were an attempt at writing something that might pass a cursory look at someone eager to expose a conspiracy and American war crimes, but contains just enough red flags to make sure that certain people question what they're reading? So why would someone do that? You know, a lot of people wondered why a special forces guy like...
This is a person who went to the wrong Las Vegas when he was going to try to go to blow up the car. Everybody's acting like this was all done of sound mind. Like, you're trying to apply logic and rationality to somebody that blew themselves up in a car with fireworks.
Like Matthew Livesberger would have taken a Cybertruck on his final ride. Special Forces guys are the best of the best, and they have been trained in counterintelligence and counter-surveillance. A Cybertruck is absolutely the wrong vehicle to take if you don't want to be followed. It doesn't have a tailpipe, but it has plenty of digital exhaust. It has multiple cameras, and the driver would need to stop at multiple chargers, all of which are recorded.
They debunked that, I'm pretty sure?
Matthew Livesberger believed that Homeland and FBI were genuinely following him, why would he take a vehicle that is an honest-to-God computer on wheels?
That's a good point.
Unless he knew he wasn't being followed. And Matthew Livesberger wanted a record because he knew that there is no content without video. So why would he want a record? Well, now that I can confirm Matthew Livesberger's email, I can actually take a look at his Yelp reviews. And here is a review he did of a sensory deprivation tank called Rest Float Solutions, which he said is good for PTSD, TBI, or behavioral issues. That link is on Substack if you want to look at it. So right there, we have a guy who looked fine on the outside, but on the inside, he might have been dealing with PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder or TBI, traumatic brain injury. So he might have crafted an email and sent it to the right people who would want to break the story, but leave breadcrumbs for others in the Special Forces community that could cast doubt. Maybe Matthew Livelsberger made the ultimate sacrifice as a hero, trying to get the word out about TBI, and that would explain why he chose a Cybertruck and went out of his way not to hurt anybody.
He did hurt people. Weren't there 17 people that were injured? That's not even true.
You know, someone from the family of Matthew Livelsberger reached out to me and thanked me for pushing back against exploiting this tragedy.
7? Oh, not
and
17.
Even though the more I think about it, the more I think that maybe Matthew Livelsberger knew that the content beast, the rage beast, the conspiracy beast must be fed by men. But if you can take that conspiracy theory message and secretly embed your true intentions, well, then maybe you can get to the right people, and after careful analysis, the truth will come out. So, Sam, I'm sorry for calling you a liar. I shouldn't have done that. And to Sean Ryan, I have no problem with you. I never did, but I apologize for calling you a liar in the thumbnail. I shouldn't have drawn 2 arrows. That was wrong, but I was confident I was right, even with lack of verifiable evidence. I think we both wanted to get the story out before all the facts were in.
Well, I don't like the equivocation here. We don't need to do the equivocation.
I think that says something about your show in general, that a man who had been hurting knew that your show was the most likely platform to raise awareness about conditions like PTSD and TBI. I think Master Sergeant Livelsberger might have known how to use social media and podcasts as a way to affect change. And now the only question is, can we get the right treatment to the warfighter before it happens again? You know, I don't like to make money off of tragedy, so I don't air any ads on certain videos. This will be one of those, but if you've been watching the news, there have been some major wildfires in California, so all the proceeds of this video are going to go to World Central Kitchen, which will most likely be in Los Angeles, feeding people who are affected by the wildfires. Thank you for watching.
So,
new information.
I've got a bit of I feel kind of a little bit different about this. So, the guy is, and Sean Ryan retweeted this, by the way. He said, "You damaged my credibility unnecessarily with false information. That type of recklessness is irresponsible, especially from a former intelligence analyst, and I hope moving forward you will keep that in mind, as it will now take some serious time to reestablish my credibility because of what you've done to me." Because, yeah, it does make Sean Ryan look like a fucking moron if this guy's putting out videos saying that he's uploading fake bullshit. That said, I accept your apologies. I'm always transparent with my audience. So in the future, if you have any questions about any of the information that I'm putting into the ecosystem, please feel free to contact me and my team, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Now let's move on. I think that this is probably the most graceful way for him to have approached it. I do. I actually think that people like to play sides with stuff like this, but this, in my opinion, is the good ending of a situation like this happening. You have a person that found out that he was pushing information that was then found out to be untrue because of the FBI clarifying later on in a statement. And then afterwards, he uploads a video and takes full credibility for it. And then the person who he's apologizing to effectively says, yeah, fuck you, but I get it. And I accept your apology. That's the way it is. I feel like this is this is basically the best outcome that could have happened, right? It's the internet growing up. Why would you call him a liar without proof, though? Well, that's why he's apologizing. He's apologizing for being wrong. He basically shot from the hip, and he automatically assumed that the guy was lying because of, I guess, he didn't like the way that he was talking about the military, basically, right? People make mistakes. Yeah, that's why he's wrong. That's why I made this video, is he shouldn't have called him that. It was a mistake. Like, that's it. He made a mistake, and he apologized for it, and I think that's a good thing. He jumped the gun to farm content. He got emotional. Yep. He apologized. Doesn't make it right, though. The best apology is changed behavior. And I guess when another one of these situations inevitably happens, we'll know whether that's actually true or not. That's the way I see it. But I did want to talk about this, especially considering I talked about it a lot myself, right? And I made like 2 or 3 videos about it. So it does seem like that original email was real, and the FBI came out later on and they confirmed that not only was the manifesto real, but also the email that was sent to the Sean Ryan's podcast in accompaniment with that. So yeah.